Quick comment about landlords. So I used to have a very myopic perspective, but it worked for me. It made sense. Paulo Freire talked about how liberation is this process and how you never, the liberation, the process of liberation. But I feel like you can eventually just get free, right? You can be free. It's not always the oppressor versus the oppressed. Perhaps we are in a system, in a situation where the system somehow is oppressing you, but you could also just be oppressed by some oppressive fucking bullying motherfucker, right? Some piece of shit bullying motherfucker. It had nothing to do with the system, nothing to do with the institutions. So landlords, first of all, landlord, right? Malcolm X says that all land revolutions are over land. When they say landlord, Nick Brannon or something, he had made a joke about how he always says to his landlord, "Hello, my liege." Why does he have to call him the landlord? Because he's the lord of the land. That's, they control the land, they control the buildings on it. So landlord is exactly what they are. You are, you're nothing. I mean, you're somebody, you're humans, and I respect this, but what I'm saying is you're renting space. You're renting space, right? So the Lord, right, the Lord of the land, you're just renting space. It's his property, his land. You sign an agreement. After a year, you leave, and then they re-rent the place out to somebody else. That's typically how it's supposed to work. Now, I'm a socialist capitalist, so I have a blend of socialistic and capitalistic qualities. I'm half conservative, half liberal. How so very well balanced? How so very well balanced? So, liberal, conservative, socialist, capitalist. When it comes to my socialist perspective, we're a rich fucking country. America, the richest country, that's what we like to say, right? So we're a rich nation, one of the richest, a high standard of living. Why can't we guarantee our people all of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? At least these 5: food, water, clothing, housing, and security. These are the 5 things that each and every human being need. We all need security. We all need clothing and housing. We all need water and food. I kind of want to put warmth, but that's where clothes and housing kind of goes towards warmth. But clothes, housing, right, to get out of the elements and to have a secure, safe place to sleep, food, water for your property, your belongings, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Can we all agree that we all need these 5 things? So in a rich society, there's no goddamn motherfucking reason anybody should go without security, without clothing, without water, without food, or without housing. No motherfucking reason whatsoever, goddamn motherfucking ever. And what's the problem with housing? Nobody's building housing. The capitalists build housing, then they sell it, and then, public housing. So we need to build more housing. The people don't have enough housing because the way I understand being, the capitalistic side of me, so for the socialist side of me, we're all guaranteed housing, but that's not from the one particular individual, that's from the government, right? So my capitalist side of me says that once we all have our basic necessities, once we're guaranteed life, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that's the American thing, right? The Declaration of So we're guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, without food, water, clothing, housing, and security, we're not guaranteed life, let alone goddamn our liberties and our pursuit of happiness, but capitalism. So I'm a blend of socialist, a blend of capitalist. So once we all have our food, water, clothing, housing, and security, then, and only then, do we get into our little capitalistic, try to sell them this and that and what the fuck ever, right? Try to, scratch and claw and try to win an extra dime over the other one, get the higher wage, get the job, what the fuck ever. So, once we're guaranteed life, then the capitalistic games begin. But here in America, we're not guaranteed life. And so the capitalistic games begin when we're not guaranteed life. We should be guaranteed housing. And how would landlords, because we have to live in a house, landlords can charge as much as they fucking want. If there was public housing, then, of course, landlords, another thing about landlords, too, they couldn't compete with public housing. But another big problem that I have with landlords, so to me it is oppressor versus the oppressed until Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night, and the 48 Laws of Power, two keys to my heart. Fate Zero, Fate Stay. I used to think it was just the oppressor versus the oppressed, but then it's a lot more complicated than that now, isn't it? Right? Because what if, you're over there, I'm over here, and we're doing our thing, and there's who's the oppressor, who's the oppressed, like, you know what I mean? So I feel like you could get to a point where you're free, where you're liberated, and then once you're free, then what do? Then, capitalism. You want to be a capitalist, then you can, acquire property. If you're not into capitalism, then, I don't know, go tell jokes, but, the sky's the limit, what the fuck ever. But if your life is not guaranteed, well, then the capitalist will use the fact that, you have to have a house against you. You have to have a house. No, you got to pay me rent. You have to have a house. The cops are also generally on the landlord's side, so a lot of the times landlords will get the police to do their evictions for them. And then the thing that I want the big thing that I want to talk about with landlords is that they're a cash business, and it's a large chunk of cash business. And I once heard landlords. I've heard it go both ways. But when it comes to rent versus mortgage, I heard that if you're a landlord, then your rental properties will help pay the mortgage, but it won't get you there. So the rent doesn't actually pay the mortgage. You'll have to have supplemental income just to make sure you pay the property off. But I've also seen where the mortgage was either, just as cheap as rent or cheaper than rent. Sometimes rent could be $1,000, $2,000, some shit, and then mortgage is like $700 fucking bucks, $500 fucking dollars, what the fuck ever. So that's back when, I've rented before, but a lot of times I've seen it go both ways, right? So the mortgages, are you paying their mortgage? I think as a renter, I feel like I'm paying your motherfucking mortgage, and if it doesn't pay your whole fucking mortgage, what, 90% of your goddamn mortgage? So I'm helping pay, and then probably not the mortgage to just my piece of property, but probably your piece of property too. So I'm covering your ass, I'm covering my fucking ass. All you gotta do is get a part-time motherfucking job. Meanwhile, I gotta figure out how to, pay the lion's share $1,000 fucking dollars. So the mortgage, that means if we had a savings and loan, a bank that actually gave a shit about people and wanted to see people in housing and, doing well for themselves, because that's good for the economy. Germany figured that shit out. But you get people in housing and their own land, and they get security, can save their property up, they can build their wealth. It's also, for citizenship and prestige. There's a lot of reasons for land, why you would want land ownership. So a landlord, not only is it a cash business, so are they paying the taxes that they're supposed to be paying? Not only is it a cash business, but it's a substantial cash business. Here's $500, here's $1,000. I guess you could probably write a check and it's all, but then, landlords, they, they're fucking, anyways, another thing, so not only is it a major cash business and you're paying most of their fucking mortgage, right? What I can't stand about landlords, they're the oppressor. So in the scheme of things, in the overall scheme of things, fuck the landlords. You got to have housing. You need to live someplace. Now, in the overall scheme of things, landlords are also the parasites. They're not creating any wealth. They're not having to get a goddamn job. They're sitting on their fucking ass, and I guess they think they're smart because they're getting their capital, their land, and their buildings to work for them, right? But what they're not contributing, they're not doing, they're not adding to the GDP. The landlords are the fucking parasite. The only thing that I guess the tenants do take away from the property is reasonable wear and tear, right? Assuming it's reasonable, but reasonable wear and tear. So when it comes to getting the deposit back, I'm a stellar tenant. I'm an incredible tenant. When I make a deal, when I make an agreement, I sign, a lease for a year, for 2 years. There's one or two that I had to break, and I feel bad about it. But essentially, I made an agreement with you. I, went ahead and I once had a fucking landlord brag about me leaving the house after a year. I signed a year lease. He said he wanted the place for somebody else. I said, okay. I moved out, and then he acted like, oh, that's what I thought. What do you mean that's what you thought? I fucking signed an agreement with you, you fucking piece of shit. But apparently, I guess people do, stay past their time. So I'm a stellar tenant. I'm a stellar tenant. I pay my rent on time every time. You never hear a peep out of me. I don't fucking complain about this or that. Small problems. Mostly I don't, get the landlord to come over to do shit for shit. Just leave me the fuck alone. I pay you my rent. Leave me the fuck alone unless you want to be best friends, and that's something different. So, it is crazy that, sometimes the mortgage is cheaper than the fucking rent, right? The mortgage is cheaper than the rent, so not only am I paying your fucking mortgage, but I'm also paying for date night, too. I'm paying for you to go out to fucking get a nice little steak dinner. So I'm a stellar tenant, and I just, people are not me. I, abide by my word. I try to stick by my word, and I'm a stellar tenant. I made an agreement, but how come landlords won't give a deposit back? Every fucking landlord that I've ever had, they act surprised that I remember the deposit, and then I say, can I get it back? And then they've already spent it, right? They already fucking did something with it. They didn't set it up to the side like they were supposed to do, and then with the whole idea of the deposit, and there is like a method or whatever, they check the thing and see if there's any damage, and as long as there's only reasonable wear and tear, then you get your deposit back. But landlords, I pay them, $500,000 a month. My deposit's usually about the same, right? So I paid them $500 to $1,000 every fucking month for a year, maybe 2 years. And then when I say, hey, can I get my $500 deposit back? I paid you $500 12 months in a row. I paid you $500 12 times in a row. I put $6,000 into your pocket, and I gave you a $500 deposit, so when I go to leave and you go check to see if everything's in, on the tip-top shape, and if everything's on a tip-top shape, then I get my deposit back because you can rent the building back out. But they have a problem with it. They won't do it. I had to take a motherfucker to court. It's just insane. I do what I was doing because I think it's the right thing to do. It's what we agreed to. It's fair. It's ethical, and it's just fucked up that a goddamn landlord piece of shit I gotta pay you the deposit? Yeah, that's the whole fucking point of a deposit. I put the money down, and there's even times when I had put masking tape, or put whatever, some Kentucky chrome, what do they call it? Some duct tape on the walls, and it had sticky shit, so I painted it. I painted over it, made it, added value to the damn thing. So that way I would get my deposit back. But landlords are fucking notorious. Why don't landlords ever give a fucking deposit back? Because they're the oppressors, because they're fucking evil. So I'm a stellar tenant. I live, my agreement, I, try to stay to my word, but what the fuck is up with these landlord motherfuckers? I think they are the parasites. They are the oppressors. They want you to go get a fucking job so they can sit on their fucking ass, so they can either A, you're paying most of their fucking mortgage, or B, you're paying all of their mortgage and then some. You're paying their car payment too, and their fucking insurance, and goddamn movies, and DVD, and entertainment, and fucking trampolines, and whatever, goddamn basketball courts, and soccer stadiums. I don't know how you live, but so I don't understand. I guess I do understand. Landlords are notorious for not giving a deposit back because they're pieces of shit. They're oppressors. And I just did read about some landlords shooting the tenants, and so they're not getting their, their money, and there is some money. Their projected cost isn't exactly, what are they providing? If we were just to say, what are you actually providing, right? So if they own the damn building and they don't have a mortgage, they just paying, $100 in taxes every fucking year, then that means they are making all profit. Every single bit of rent that they get is all fucking pure profit. $500,000 rent, all goddamn profit. Now, you can put that money into the place, right? You can make it better. If you're not paying the mortgage, you've already paid the thing off, and you're just profiting, handsomely, substantially, then I can understand how, motherfuckers. I also make a distinction between small landlords and large landlords. If you had 3 rental properties, and it's really important that, you get the 3 rental properties, you get some, trustworthy people, and they get to pay, and then you can make all your things and make the arrangements. But if you're a small landlord, and you only got 3 rental properties, and all 3 properties are stiffing you, well, then you're just eating it all. You're just eating it all for 3 families. and that's no good. But for large landlords who own a shit ton of fucking property, they, if they can't manage, they got too much and they can't manage, then maybe they do need to cut back because you're a big landlord, you got 4 properties or more, and I feel like that's an important distinction. So, in general, the landlord's a piece of shit. They're the oppressors. They own capital, so they're the capitalists. They're the oppressors, and they want to take your labor. They want to take the sweat of your brow. You go work. You go get a job. You go cook. You go wait tables. You go, pass mail out or whatever. And then once you sell your labor as a wage slave, then that money that you earn, you give to me. So it's almost, you're whoring yourself out if you live in if you're living in a rental landlord situation. Now, the one saving grace about landlords is that some people actually prefer and they like the rental lifestyle. They like just paying a landlord a set amount. Here's the money. You deal with the bank and the mortgage and the taxes and this and that. That's too complicated for me. Or B, they're, just here and there, so they're not going to be, they don't need a permanent homestead, they just need a temporary place, they just need a place for a year and then they're gone. So that, rental places for people that are going to be there temporarily is absolutely perfect, right? Absolutely perfect. But that's, so my dream is that we all start on the same spot, right? In Monopoly, we all get, $5,000 to begin with, and we all get the exact same amount. So my socialist self says when we all have food, water, clothing, housing, and security, then we could be our most ruthless capitalist self because our lives are guaranteed. But since we don't have any kind of guarantee on our lives, our social safety net is awful, it's terrible. We don't have guaranteed housing, food, or water, or clothing, or security. We have none of these are guaranteed. None of these are rights embedded in the American Constitution or the Bill of Rights. And frankly, water, food, I don't know. I mean, I can see how people say, you don't have a right to the food I produce. True, but I have a right to live, and I have a right to preserve myself. And, even if you say, well, no, fuck you, if I got family, that's, I feel like food, water, clothing, housing, security. If you don't have food, get yourself some food. If you don't have clothing and housing, get yourself some clothing and housing. You don't have water and security, get yourself some water and security. Those are human rights. Those are absolutely vital, necessary for life. And so, yeah, my socialist, self wants us to start from the same plane. We all have the same, we all got a house, and we all got the same acres. We all got $5,000 in the bank. We all begin at the exact same, and we're all guaranteed life. So therefore, I don't have to, if I'm being a capitalist, I don't have to think, well, shit, did I just fuck over a poor person or a homeless person? Did I just manipulate or exploit a person that was in a tough spot because of the capitalist, or did I just make a good deal? Did I make a good deal, or did I just, twist somebody's arm way too hard and they're all resentful and mad about it and they're like, you son of a bitch, that son of a motherfucker, that one son of a motherfucker. So yeah, landlords are shitty. I can't stand landlords. I don't know why landlords are so fucking shitty. I don't know why they're so fucking shitty. I don't know why they're so parasitical, and they're oppressors, and they don't have to be oppressors. My God, if there's one, industry that should be awesome, all you have to do is just show up once a month or whatever, ask for rent. But as long as you're providing the thing and they're paying the thing, then what? You just show up once a month and then, they don't have no problems. You collect the fucking rent and you go the fuck home. You collect what, $1,000 fucking dollars just for waking up and driving to somebody's house? And that's assuming that you haven't got, a sort of system where they just drop the money off at your house. You just have to go to the damn mailbox or go to the damn drop box at your door. So I don't have much sympathy for landlords. The only sympathy I have is just that there's a contract, there's an agreement, and when it comes to small landlords, if the income that they're making off the property is absolute vital, for their family, and their families are being sunk. They're small landlords. They don't have a shit ton of property. They're not a big corporate fucking, thing where they have like 100 different units. They just got, 3 units. All right. So there's some thoughts about landlords.